Hello, everyone. This is the new episode of ByteAnt's podcast series, Tech Founders Talk. I'm your host, Yuri, and today we have Dr. John Hsu as our guest. Dr. Hsu is a medical doctor, co founder, and CEO at iPillDispenser. Hello, John. It's great to have you here today.
Hi, Yuri. Thank you for having me.
Great. Okay, let's talk about iPillDispenser. Actually, as far as I understand, it is a hardware device aimed at fighting the opioid crisis. Tell me a bit more about how it works.
Sure. The simplest way to explain it is with examples, with an analogy. So, in order to prevent opioid abuse and diversion, we need to make the opioid secure. So we use a car fob like situation. We have a mobile app that requires 2 points of biometric authentication. We use the app as like a car fob. Only you can open your car and start it. So only you who is prescribed the opioids can access opioids only at the prescribed dose. The mobile app connects to a iPill dispenser that dispenses opioids only at the prescribed dose. This is similar to a bank ATM. You can only get a certain amount of money per day with a maximum amount of money that you can get per day. So our iPill dispenser, you can only get opioids as prescribed, and there's a maximum amount per day. The important part of the opioid is iPill dispenser is that if you try to tamper with it, it actually destroys the pills inside the iPill dispenser. And in 90 days, it also destroys the unused opioids. In the United States, we have 3.3 billion unused opioids entering our cities every year. So this is a good way to securely store, actively control, and dispose of unused opioids to prevent abuse and addiction.
Okay, as far as I understand, you have like a huge medical background, and probably that's how you came up with this idea. But maybe there was some point when you like had an inspiration about this device. How this idea came to you?
You're gonna laugh at this. One day I was gonna go play golf. So one day I had to start my car, and I was thinking, wow, only I can start my car with my fob. And then I had to go to the bank to get money because we gamble when we play golf, and only I can use my card and my personal code to get money. So I started thinking, opioids, when they're given to a patient at home, they don't have any type of security or any type of controlled dispensing. And I thought, what better way to dispense opioids as if it was money? I mean, we put our jewelry, our watches, our stocks in a safe, but those things don't kill people. But opioids can kill people. So how come we don't put them in a safe to be safely, securely stored at home so kids can't get to it and overdose and die? What is really disheartening for me is 1 in 4 overdoses today involves children.
That sounds terrific. Actually, your dispenser is connected via Bluetooth, but that's probably not the only solution. How did you came up with the idea of Bluetooth connection? Maybe there are some other alternative technologies. In terms of security, is it really good or not? Tell a few words about this.
Sure. I think BLE, Bluetooth Low Energy, is a very reasonable way to connect your own smartphone to the iPill dispenser because it's your phone. You have to open your phone with 2 points of biometric authentication, either your face or your fingerprint and a personal code. And it's your phone. Most people, they have a heart attack if they lose their phone. They can't live without their phone. So you're going to have your own security measure for your own phone. That's the first part of it. The second part of it is the phone itself needs to be opened so the app can be used. And we have a second degree of authentication, your face, your fingerprint, and your personal code. So that's unique to you. And then the PLE, we make the connection between the app, the phone, and the dispenser unique because we use 128 encryption. So we actually add a random number generator to numerically enhance the security of the device. The third part of the security is with proximity. We can dial down the energy level of the BLE transmitter so that you have to be within 2 or 3 feet, let's say, or 4 or 5 feet, so that you have to have proximity. So a person who has ransomware trying to log into your dispenser from the net won't be able to do it.
Yeah, that's great measures in terms of security. Let's talk about after you came up with this brilliant idea and you started to making a business plan, pitching your startup, etc. Actually, after the launch, what were the key risks for your product? How did you handle those risks?
The key risks are really pretty basic, meaning that we need to make sure someone pays for the device. We needed to promote the device to the pharmacy insurer who are going to pay for the device. In order to do that, we needed to get reimbursement codes so that the device will be less costly to them, so they see the benefit from a profit standpoint. So because we're an FDA Innovation Challenge winner, and because we're a breakthrough product designated FDA device, that means that we get the CPT codes and C codes through the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid faster. We also get HCPCS codes, HCPCS codes from HHS, and then the FDA UDI number. So that means that we can make the device reimbursable to the insurer, which means that it's of limited cost. We're trying not to increase the cost to the patient. In doing so, what we want to do is show that the device can save money and increase profits for the insurer. Every year, it costs $19,333 to take care of a subscriber who is abusing opioids. It also means that for every opioid death, it costs the insurer $1.8 million. That's because for every death, there's 119 ER visits and 22 hospitalizations. So if let's say we did this in patients who are under 26 years old, we can save, let's say, a medium-sized insurer $4.5 billion. So we show them that we can use a small amount of money to save a lot of money. And so that gives them incentive to want to use the device.
So you actually use money against other money to bring health. Both will benefit the clients, the people who get the medication, and the insurance companies. That sounds really amazing.
Yeah, this project is very, very unique because it's a win-win-win-win-win for everyone involved. Like you just said, and you're very smart in making that perception. Patients can get their opioids. That's very important because chronic pain patients have not been able to get their opioids because of the federal government has decreased opioid prescribing. The insurance companies will make more money, so they're going to win. Physicians no longer have to worry about risking their license or going to jail because their patients overdose. Patients win because they not only get their drugs, but they get their drugs in a very safe manner. We do have a respiratory sensor that's associated with it. So if you're not breathing well, 911 is called. And then
that's awesome.
Yeah, and then the pharmacies win because they now have a secure way to dispose of opioids. The FDA wins because now they have a way to save $698 billion a year in medical expenses and loss of workman comp productivity. And politicians win because then they can say they solved the opioid crisis.
Okay. And actually, as a startup with this brilliant idea, what were your mistakes? What are some things that you recommend to avoid? Some things that if you had a second chance, you wouldn't do?
Well, one of the biggest issues that I have is to understand that this is a big project and I need lots and lots of friends. And by nature, I'm very trusting of people. A lot of people told me that they could raise money for me, and they have not been able to. So my biggest weakness is probably trusting people too much. We need to be discerning in how we listen to people and what they tell you. So one of the things that I eventually had to do was actually put in $500,000 of my own money to make this project go forward. And part of the $500,000 is paying people money so they could raise money for me. But those people were not able to raise money for me. So one of the things that I would say as one of the biggest weaknesses is I should have tried to raise money and then pay for success fees. Most people tell you when they raise money is that, oh, you need money to pay me so we can share risk. That doesn't make sense. If we want to share risk, then if they are as good as they say they are, then we should work together. And then if they're successful, I pay them more than they're asking for. And that's what I should have done.
Okay, that sounds interesting. And you actually said about 500K of your investments, but what was the cost of actually doing all the startup initial things in order to launch your product? Did you have like overheads, or how could you avoid them except not trusting people?
So I have a software company. I'm a programmer. So I program Go. So I actually wrote the initial programs for the iPill app. I took the, I actually made the device. I bought products on iPill, for iPill on Amazon and went to my garage and put it together. So because I can program, I was able to program the Arduino chip in our prototype and add in a BLE transmitter. So I did a lot of the work myself. So I've bootstrapped the company. The cost of that is fairly minimal because it's very inexpensive to make. By design, I tried to make the device easy to manufacture. As I move forward into prototyping, what I had to do is hire people to do better work than me. You know, I'm a physician, but I know how to program and I know what I need to do, but I don't have enough time in a day to do it. So I needed to get patents. So I initially filed the patents myself, and then I hired an attorney to follow up on the patents. So that costed a few dollars. I applied for grants and I applied for all the different requirements for starting a startup. And I did those myself. So I did a lot of the work myself.
That's actually great. In terms of competition, I believe your product is unique, but maybe there are like some other solutions now on the market that copied you, or maybe there were some similar devices earlier. How it goes with competition?
Well, right now there's two main competitors to my product. I've been doing this for 3 years. One of the competitors is called MedicaSafe. They've been doing this for 14 years, and they've taken about $7-8 million in grant money.
Oh, wow.
Their device uses only 1-point authentication, which is a problem because banks use 2-point authentication. If you are trying to protect your money, you would want 2-point authentication. So therefore, our earlier example of using an ATM, you have to use 2-point authentication. That's one of their weaknesses. The other weakness that they have is that they're using a plastic container. So if you actually break into it, it's just like a child-resistant cap. You open the cap, you can put all the tablets on a table, and you can easily divert or abuse those drugs. There's another device called TAD, T-A-D, Take As Directed, by a company that is from Intent Solutions. Again, they use 1-point authentication, and also they're made out of plastic. They don't destroy the pills, and if you break into it, you can have access to the pills. What my product does is it controls the pills and actually controls human behavior. So if you decide you want to take more pills than usual, you have a chance to go through cognitive behavioral therapy, which means that I can try to divert your need to take opioids with music, with social media posts, with other people, with yoga poses, with games, anything that can distract you from taking opioids. We know this works because in the workman comp industry, they've taken opioids from 60% per claim to 25% per claim by using multidisciplinary team approach to control pills and also control cognitive behavioral therapy.
If we actually talk in terms of technology, you told this amazing story how you did the first device on your own in your garage, and that's amazing. But after that, you said you need to take a team together. Did you went on hiring at USA, or maybe you went on outsource? How did you build your team?
So I built my team with a group of experts in their field. I wanted specific jobs done. Cheapest way to do that is to get experts and give them a task that's well defined. So as an example, if this iPill, I want to have dispensed with all 191 million opioid prescriptions in the United States. So I may need to build 191 million iPill dispensers per year.
Mm-hmm.
I contacted Foxconn, the makers of the iPhone. They were so intrigued with the project that they saw good social impact. So we have a mutual understanding and a signed MOU letter. They can build 1 to 2 million per day in a factory in Mexico or China. So in order to do this project correctly, I needed to look at the scenario several iterations down the road. So I found the best people to help with this project and demonstrated a social impact project in which they can make a huge amount of profit as well.
iPillDispenser is IoT device, and can you share what technologies you used to build it and why? Did you maybe use some ready-made IoT solutions and platforms, or was it built from scratch and etc.?
Well, the IoT device was built from scratch. We used off-the-shelf materials. We used an Arduino board, which is like $8-9 on Amazon. And then I used a BLE chip, which is like a $3. Mm-hmm. And then I used some 3D printed 3D printed devices for the housing and so forth. And the way it's built, I also had to use a solenoid to push the pills out. Mm-hmm. The way the internal mechanics are is that everything can be injection molded in the future. Mm-hmm. So for the future, we need to do industrial design to make sure this product can be manufactured in very high volumes. So I would like to use a PCB board, printed circuit board, with the BLE chip transmitter inside. So that would make the PCB board maybe less than $1. The BLE chip maybe 70-80 cents. The solenoid can be at less than $1. The housing will cost, if it's injection molded, maybe $1. I need to make this device very, very inexpensive so it can be ubiquitous for mm-hmm. all patients. So I want to make sure all patients can get access to it and make sure it's cheap enough so the industry, the pharmacy, insure industry can say, oh, this is a non-costly device that has great potential.
Okay, and actually, how many of devices did you produce during the 3 years? What is your market read?
So we've only produced prototype. We are launching to market now. We have 2 mm-hmm. purchase orders from behavioral science centers. Mm-hmm. They are doing a pilot. One is starting with 200 units that will probably launch into 13,000 units. The other is mm-hmm. a behavioral science center that has 3 centers in 3 states. They will eventually start out with probably a couple hundred units as well, and then also launch into between 7,000 to 8,000 units per year. There's 1,450 behavioral treatment centers in the United States. That particular model for that particular segment will give me, hopefully, if all behavioral science centers use it, will give me a gross income of about $2 billion.
Mm-hmm. That sounds very good. And actually, in terms of sales and marketing, how do you pitch your product? Is this a personal connection or, I don't know, some kind of a promotional campaign?
Well, it's interesting you asked that. You know, we haven't launched to market yet. These 2 behavioral science centers actually found me on the internet, and they were so interested in the device because they want to decrease relapse rate of their patients going from the inpatient to the outpatient center. And this is like a ATM for opioids. It's a secure way to monitor their opioids that they've never had before. So they contacted me. So once I see them and we have a positive trial, then we can use that information to market to the rest of the industry. What I would rather do to make selling efficient is to get an insurance mandate. If one insurance company decides to put all their opioids in this, the US government may see the value of this, a very inexpensive way to save $698 billion, then becomes a federal mandate, just like the child-resistant cap. You know, the child-resistant cap was developed in 1967 by Dr. Henri Briault, and that was 53 years ago. We haven't improved it at all. We've sent a man to the moon, but we haven't improved something that can kill people.
Okay, yeah, and actually it's very great for a startup when like the product is not yet on the market, but there are already clients who want it. So it's a great experience. How would you suggest like people who are doing startups right now, what should they do in order to get this great attention to their product? What are your tips for startups that they should keep in mind and that will help them to do a better product?
I think for most people, you have to think about the end customer, and you have to think about it from the bottom up and the top down. So you have to make a product that people will want, and then you have to make a product that the purchaser will want as well. And sometimes that's the customer. But in my situation, we have the customer, which is the patient, and we have the customer that is also the pharmacy insurer, the FDA. So you need to go from bottom up and top down. So looking at having a customer and a market that demands your product. And I think we've successfully determined that.
Yeah, okay. Actually, you mentioned it a couple of times, but didn't said it out loud. What will be the final price? What are you planning? Like it's $10, $20, $100? How much would be the final price of the device?
Well, I asked a pharmacy insurer company that has about 40 million subscribers. That's a medium-sized. In a meeting with them, I asked them how much they would pay for this device. And they said $300. And I told them, I would offer this device to you for $50. The next thing they said is, I want to put your device in our 10,000 pharmacies. I told them, I'm not ready yet. I need to know your company. I need to know your workflow. I need to do a pilot with you to make sure that you don't ruin my business and I don't ruin your business. So I think that at $50, we can get this reimbursed by the government. And at $50, these pharmacy insurers can save $20,000 per abusing patient and $1.8 billion for each opioid death. I want to make this such that it's not really a stressful situation for the pharmacy insurer. It can be a small increment in how they price this product so that it becomes ubiquitous. You know, it's like chewing gum, something very inexpensive that they use often. And that way, it begins to save lives and have really a social impact project. You know, this is not only a social impact project, but also an evergreen project, because anyone who uses an opioid can be safely protected by only being able to access opioids at the prescribed dose. And then their kids or their other family members can't get those drugs because they aren't prescribed. So there's a reduced risk of diversion.
Okay, and let's talk about a topic that is currently like everywhere is coronavirus. And what I would like to ask is how corona and if coronavirus influence your business, and how do you see the industry now, and how the coronavirus influence the industry right now?
Wow, that's a great question. You know, the coronavirus, that's one pandemic. But, you know, there's actually two pandemics. There's a coronavirus pandemic, and there's the opioid crisis or opioid pandemic. In the opioid crisis in the United States, because we've quarantined, the opioid overdose deaths in March went up 18%. In April, overdose deaths went up 29%. In May, opioid overdose went up 42%. it has slowed the ability for me to market the device to investors. But we're using Zoom, similar to what you were doing today. I think once we get a vaccine or the COVID becomes more improved with social distancing and wearing masks, people will come to realize the opioid crisis has never left. And COVID has actually accelerated the opioid prescription, opioid overdose issue. So I need to get this on market as soon as possible. I need lots of help. I need investors to help me. I need people to talk about it so that we realize that there's a COVID pandemic and there's an opioid overdose pandemic as well.
Yeah, that's very, very important thing, what you're actually doing.
Yeah, as an example, after the United States, Canada has a very large problem with prescription opioids as well. The indigenous tribes have a problem. The veterans in Canada have a problem as well. That's because opioids are what I like to call is well, let me think about this. The problem is you have uncontrolled access to controlled substances. The child-resistant cap doesn't protect adults. So people can take opioids as they decide. So the real issue in Canada and the United States is that you need to treat both the patient and the pills. So in Canada, what I'm going to do is do a 90-10 tie. 90% of the profits from the iPill will stay in Canada to help people who are homeless, who have an opioid addiction, to help people. That is a social impact project that hopefully people will understand that I'm doing this to help society. It's not for me making a lot of money, because people can sometimes see doctors as greedy, see businessmen as greedy. But if I tie 90% of the profits back into Canada and they stay in Canada, hopefully people will understand that my heart is in helping people.
Yeah, that's bravo. That's absolutely great. And if we keep talking about some effect that your device will have on a society, you're now talking about Canada. Did you consider like expansion to other markets? Because actually USA and Canada, they're quite rich, to be honest. And there are countries worldwide that are not that lucky, but they surely have the same problem. Did you consider expanding your business further?
Yes. Two things. We have a PCT patents. We have to follow the administrative issues. So we have patents in the EU, South America, Asia, and Canada, of course. The second thing that we're doing is when people need to have a clinical study for clinical research organizations, one of the big issues that they have is they're not able to promote patient adherence to the complicated study protocols. So if you have a patient who needs to take a pill right after they eat, 4 hours later, 18 hours later, 24 hours later, then every 36 hours after that, you need a patient reminder, and you need to also figure out when the patient actually took the pills. So the iPill record the time they took the study drug from the iPill. And then what we've done is we've added a small Bluetooth transmitter in conjunction with a company that produces this transmitter. The importance of the transmitter is such that once the person takes the pill and it hits the stomach, the gastric pH causes an electron transport potential. In doing so, it sends a small signal, a BLE signal, to a patch that can collect that information. So now you have a way to determine and remind patients to take the pills, determine when they take the pills, and determine when it hits the stomach. Now you have pharmacokinetic, pharmacodynamic data that is very, very accurate. So that can improve the way drugs are evaluated and the success of certain drugs. Because I can make this very inexpensively, I can make this for the abuse deterrent behavioral centers. I can make this device for clinical research. I'm actually making this device for dentists as well, because the kids under 26 years old have the highest rate of opioid prescription usage and abuse. The dentists are the first point where young people get exposed to opioids. They're also the first point of prevention to prevent a lifetime of medical expenses associated with addiction and abuse, which we can prevent, hopefully reduce the risk of associated problems with opioid addiction and abuse, such as crime and homelessness.
Actually, what I was also wondering about some market predictions and tendencies in healthcare. How do you see healthcare like in 5-10 years? What are the key tendencies and trends in there? How do you see your product changing healthcare the way it is done now?
Potentially, hopefully this product will go worldwide. That's why it has to be inexpensive. The United States has a high cost of medical expense, and also population in the U.S. makes more money than the rest of the world, I think. It also has a very high cost of living. I think, as an example, there's a state probation and also a behavioral treatment scenario. So in the COVID situation, the politicians have decided that they would like to release addicts out of jail, which makes a lot of sense to me. They don't get treatment in jail. So what I propose is to use the ankle bracelets that give house arrest for addicts and use the iPillDispenser to dispense opioids, so that, number one, these addicts do not get opioid withdrawal syndrome, which can cause death and cause them to seek out more opioids, but to give them opioids in a controlled fashion so we can keep them alive, so that we can give them cognitive behavioral therapy to also add to the way we can treat them. So if this state agency for probation and judiciary department puts this in place, we can save them money, because at $50 for the iPillDispenser and about $200 for the ankle bracelet, that's $300 a day, whereas it costs between $800 to $900 per day to keep a person in jail.
Actually, I'm kind of out of questions. So it was really, really great to talk with you. Your project, iPillDispenser, is it looks like something very amazing that will change the society and that will change the healthcare and help, I hope, very, very a lot of people. So thank you for coming. This was a really, really great discussion.
Thank you for having me. I just want to say one last thing. Most people don't realize that the opioid crisis is 20 years old, and the opioid overdose deaths has increased every year except for one. What we need to do is do something different. We can't do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. I hope that people will have an open mind so that we can actually make a difference in the lives of people who are abusing opioid and prevent them from going down a path in which opioid abuse and addiction is the only way out.
Great. Thank you for what you're doing, because I sincerely believe that it makes the world better.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah. See you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.